Welcome back to Turning Hard Times into Good Times. I'm your host, Jay Taylor, and I'm really glad to have Robert Moriarty with me once again. We'll call him Bob. Anyway, I've been wanting to talk to Bob about his new book, Basic Investing in Resource Stocks, The Idiot's Guide. But Bob keeps coming up with great new stories, exploration companies that are so exciting. We're going to postpone the discussion of his book until next week sometime. Actually, I think we're going to have to do it and post it at J. Taylor Media next week when we finally get around to talking to Bob about it, and then we'll put it on the live show when we have an opportunity. But, Bob, thanks for joining me again.
Well, it's a pleasure to be back.
It's a pleasure to talk to somebody in the south of France where I suppose it's nice and sunny and life is really good there, in the wine country, right?
We are in the wine country, and it's beautiful spring. It's early this year.
Yeah, good. Well, what I want to ask you about is Aurania. Do I pronounce that right?
It's Aurania.
Aurania, of course. The AU threw me. Aurania Resources. Traded in Toronto, ARU is the symbol. And you can buy it in the U.S. under the symbol AUIAF. 32.9 million shares outstanding, and I guess the stock is down like a lot of the gold shares today. It's at $3.30 Canadian. So it's, I guess it's a market cap of it's 80 million or so, probably. Bob, I believe you're working on another book. Okay, so the book that I want to talk to you about, hopefully we'll get to it next week, is The Idiot's Guide to Investing in Resource Stocks. And maybe just give us a real quick summary of what it's about.
Well, what I'm trying to do, and it's interesting because I went out and started doing some research, and I realized that there's a lot of technical books and a lot of technical writing about mining and about mining stocks, but there's very little basic information. My whole theme and thesis is people have access to enough information that if they will use common sense and the internet, they can make their own decisions. There aren't any gurus. There aren't any experts. There's just guys talking who would like to be considered gurus and experts. People have the ability to make money on their own judgment, and following gurus is a sure way to lose money.
Yeah, I think you've written another book called Nobody Knows Anything or something like that. Is that sort of along the same ideas?
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody knows anything. So before you pay Taylor a big fee for his weekly and monthly newsletter, just realize you can do it on your own. Is that the message, Bob?
Well, no. Actually, it's exactly the opposite of that. We have more access to information now than at any time in history. And if you will figure out who knows what they're talking about, but face it, Jay, there's probably 50 gold sites out there. Mm-hmm. And about 45 of them are Me Too sites talking about manipulation, conspiracies, naked short selling, COMEX defaults, and it's all bullshit.
Yeah. Well, I've never really thought that I was any kind of a guru. I just work hard and try to convey information to people that they might not have the time to drill down on themselves. That's what I try to do. And I know that you do that, too. You write some great reports at 321 Gold that people can access. And, of course, that's why I'm learning about this story today, Aurania.
You keep stumbling.
I can't say the name, can I? Maybe I should learn to say the name of the company. Yeah. Aurania.
You want to know the name because it's going to be a big hit.
It's going to be a big one. Aurania. If I got it?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we said the name. Now we're on to the story. Let's talk about this. It's got a project in Ecuador called the Lost Cities Project. And this is a story that's very rich in history. It dates back to the days of the Spanish Empire when the Spaniards were calling the shots in Ecuador and elsewhere in South America. Can you talk a little bit about the history of this story and how Aurania happened to get involved?
Well, yeah, it's a fascinating story that I've been part of for about 15 years. Now, most people don't know this, but there's a lot of things that I do that are totally invisible to the readers of my site. We got started in the summer of 2001 because I saw a bottom in silver and gold shares. There was some geologist who had all these grandiose ideas named Keith Barron, who started a website in September of 2001 called Straight Talk on Mining. And I read his pieces and I thought, this guy really sounds interesting and I would like to repost it. So we got in touch with him and said, hey, you got some good stuff and you're not getting a lot of exposure and we would like to repost your pieces. And he said, sure. And we've been friends ever since then. So I knew Keith Barron long before Fruta del Norte. So he goes on to stake an area of Ecuador, comes up with one of the best gold finds in the last 25 or 30 years, and literally retired rich. But nobody knows this. Years ago, before Aurelian Resources, where he made all its money, he had been doing research into these lost cities. There were 5 major gold mines in Ecuador run by the Spanish. This goes back to the 16th century. The Spanish were monsters, and they abused the Indians, and the Indians revolted in 2 of the cities, killed all the Spanish, and gradually, over hundreds of years, people had forgotten that there were 2 cities with major gold mines in them. Well, Keith was down there literally studying Spanish, and a geologist friend of his said, you need to take a look into this. He did that before he started Aurelian. So it's not a new project. It's an old project. He came to visit us in Grand Cayman, I don't know, 10 years ago, Barbara? And he talked about this. Now, here's what's funny, Jay, and you got to be honest with me. If a geologist came up to you and said, hey, there's these 2 lost cities of gold in Brazil, and I've mapped to them, how interested are you? You'd think this guy's a fruitcake.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean,
but of course, we should mention that that Keith Barron is Dr. Keith Barron. He's quite an academic as well. I mean, not a professor, but he's a very strong intellectual. So it's, if you knew his background, you might take him a bit more seriously than, I guess.
No, you wouldn't.
No, maybe not.
There's hundreds of PhDs in geology, okay? And the only guy who could ever convince me, hey, this is interesting, would be Keith Barron, because Keith Barron just happens to be the expert on Ecuador. He literally opened that country up to mining and exploration. Everybody who's in Ecuador owes something to Keith Barron. He put.
We should mention, perhaps, Bob, that the Fruta del Norte is quite a project, isn't it? I think something like 4.6 million ounces are expected to be produced over 15 years, and it's nearing production now, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Lundin Mining. It's nearing production, and there's about, I think, 12.7 million ounces total. So it's a really big project, and it's a major project. But let's go back to the Twin Cities.
Yes.
Keith came to us 10 years ago, said, I've got this really goofy idea. I know where these 2 cities are. And I went, yeah, Keith, that's really interesting. But the more he talked about it, the more I thought, this might not be that goofy. And then Ecuador literally was shut down for about 10 years because the government got greedy. And he was just waiting until he could do something. And then they opened the country up for exploration again. He went in and staked a big area. So he's done a lot of technical work. He is the biggest shareholder. He owns over 50% of the stock. He supported this company for 10 years, okay? So I hope he makes a ton of money out of it. Now, it's one of those good news, bad news stories. He's done a ton of exploration. Now, nothing in what he's found suggests to me that he's found the Twin Cities of gold.
Mm-hmm.
That's the bad news.
Mm-hmm.
The good news, and there is some good news, is that he's found 16 major targets.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Keith Barron, Dr. Keith Barron, we're talking about, who is absolutely a genius, absolutely understands Ecuador. He's drilling now. There will be results coming out probably in 2 to 3 months from now, and he's going to hit something on any or all of those 16. But I will say people should go to the website and they should read the story of the lost cities, because Keith Barron is absolutely the best communicator in the mining business, and he tells a fascinating story about these Twin Cities. Now, I don't give a damn personally if he finds the Twin Cities or not, okay? I want the company to be successful. I'm a shareholder. But the story of the loss of the cities and then their possible rediscovery is just absolutely fascinating.
Well, and I'm reading his latest press releases. He's not unhappy about what he's finding so far in exploration. I mean, he's come across some very significant copper values and I guess secondary enriched copper areas and some silver, and I think also some base metals. There hasn't been much of anything in gold so far. I think he noted in one of his press releases that gold is still the target, the primary focus, but so far there's some promising copper mineralization. But you say 16 targets, so they actually started drilling now. I wasn't aware of that, Bob.
Oh yeah, they started. I think they started on the 3rd of March.
And he talks a lot about scout holes. Are these? Is he drilling for structure, or is he drilling for? Is he actually hoping to hit some juicy? I mean, he's hoping, but does he expect to hit some juicy mineralization?
Well, I personally, and he's a very low key guy, so
yes.
he won't say that, but I'll say it. He's got 16 targets where the numbers are literally off the chart, and he's going to find something interesting. Right now, the company has about $100 million market cap, and that's absolutely unusual for a company that has never put a drill hole in the ground. That's the Keith Barron effect, and it's absolutely worth it. It's going to be interesting. The share structure is very tight. There's not very many shares out. He is better at community relations and dealing with the locals than anybody I know in the mining business. So my second book, the one about basic investing in resource stocks, I think was 110 pages. My third book will be advanced investing in resource stocks, and it's going to be 2 or 3 pages. And I'm going to say, stay away from this guy, and stay away from this guy, and stay away from this guy. And if you see anything by Keith Barron, buy into it, or Quentin Henney, or David Lowell, Peter McGaw, throw money at it. And that's going to be my advanced investing in resource stocks book.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it, to pay attention to who you're dealing with. I see also... Yeah, I mean, we should, as I said, there's just under 33 million shares, and if Keith Barron owns 50%, obviously, not much stock out there. If he hits some juicy numbers, I would imagine it could make a nice run. Selling at $3.30 today, down 40-some cents, so it might be a good time to take a peek. All right, so anything else you want to say about this story? Summing up, you're really excited about it, I guess, in large part because of the jockey, but also some promising geology that they're finding so far. So, I mean, he would expect to find the gold in the lost cities. That's the target, right?
That's the target. However, if he finds, $500 or $600 million worth of copper, I'm sure that would be acceptable.
Oh, yeah, we'll take it, won't we? Well, I'll take it when I own the shares. I don't yet, but I'm taking a real good look at it thanks to you, Bob. And folks, 321gold.com, go there. Bob writes about a lot of stories that he picks up on, shares his insights with you, and thanks for sharing them with us today, Bob, and we'll look to catch up with you on your book, the one for idiots. I could probably use that book. So anyway, thanks so much for being with us, and we'll talk to you again very soon, hopefully next week.
It's a real pleasure, Jay. Thank you very much.